they're on the phone. Tina, can you hear me?
No.
Yes, we can
Been
hear
there,
you.
done that. I started out as a.
Good morning.
Morning.
So. Oh, I'm not on.
Now you are.
Good morning. We're waiting for one more commissioner, so when they get here, we will get started.
It's mute.
On? Okay.
I still don't see her. I could try calling her if you'd like.
Yeah, real quick.
Who are we waiting for?
Commissioner Littman,
I can send her a text also.
thank you.
She just sent me a text. She said, would you please resend the link to her?
Tina is doing so now. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for the link, Tina.
Good morning. This is the time and place for the Nevada Tax Commission. Today is June 27th, 2022. The time is approximately 9:05. Welcome, everybody. Tina, would you call roll?
Commissioner Littman,
Present.
Commissioner Bursey,
I'm here.
Commissioner Rotifer,
Here.
Commissioner Brown,
Present.
Commissioner Johnson,
Present.
Commissioner Byram,
I am here.
Commissioner Witt,
Present.
and Chairman Wren.
Present. Thank you very much. Now it's time for public comment. Do we have any public comment in Carson City?
No public comment.
Is there any public comment in Las Vegas?
No, Chairman, there's no public comment.
Is there any public comment on the telephone?
If anyone has public comment on the telephone or on Zoom, please dial *9 to be put into the queue. I don't see any public comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Before we call the first case, if you would check your agendas, item B1, Quest for Kindness, has been withdrawn. We will not hear that this morning. That's B1, Quest for Kindness. Director Hughes, if you would administrate the oath, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. For those of you testifying today, Please raise your right hand and take the oath. I testifying today, you are confirming that you raised your hand, took the oath, and that your testimony during these proceedings will be truthful. Thank you.
Thank you. First thing on the agenda is the meeting minutes. Is there any additions, corrections, or motion?
Mr. Chairman, in the first paragraph, there's actually probably a correction that should be made. It says, I've been a lawyer in Reno, Northern Nevada for over 30 years. I've actually just been a lawyer in Nevada for over 30 years.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Byram.
yes.
On the minutes on page 9, there are a couple statutory references that appear to be wrong. And I believe Tina has a version where it's been corrected, but NRS 377.52 isn't a valid statute. And the second paragraph, NRS 367.50 should be 360.750, I believe.
Okay.
Those have been made.
Tina says those corrections have been made, so would you care to make a motion with those?
I would move to make a motion to approve the minutes as corrected.
Is there a second?
Seconds.
There's a motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Director Hughes?
The next item on the agenda is the consent calendar.
Thank you very much. Is there anything on the consent calendar that a commissioner would like to have?
Mr. Commissioner,
Yes.
a matter of housekeeping on consent calendar C1 THC Nevada LLC. I need to recuse myself on that matter. I've represented THC in the past on some unrelated matters. And my partner, Steve Cohen, has also represented THC on some unrelated matters. So I'd like to recuse myself on that matter, but I will participate on all the other matters.
Okay, so do we need to pull that? Okay, so yeah, we're going to pull C1 THC Nevada, and we will vote on that separately. Anything else need to be pulled?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Byram,
Yes.
I would like to pull item 3B18, website sales LLC, for additional discussion. And I would also like to pull item 3C11, Nevada Gold Mines, to recuse myself as I have conflict of interest.
Okay. Anything else?
Chairman, it's Commissioner Lippman.
Yes.
I would like to pull item 3E as an elephant 2, Anthony and Cheryl Fredericks.
Okay. Anything else? I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of those items pulled.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Commissioner Witt,
Motion second. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Shelley, do you want to call these or shall I just go through them?
And you can just go through them.
Okay, so the next thing on our agenda that's been pulled is B18. Website sales.
I am trying to get to that case. I'm looking up. I think is it on the second document? Hold on.
No, I think it's in the first one.
Darn it. Okay, well, I can't seem to find it very quickly, but the issue that I had with that is that this entity wasn't aware that they needed to collect tax. However, they were collecting tax unknowingly because they had flipped a switch in their software program to start collecting it in Nevada. And then in their voluntary disclosure, they didn't remit the taxes that they were collecting for Nevada because they didn't realize they were even collecting them. But now they want, I believe, a waiver of penalty and interest. And I'm kind of curious about that because normally they're not aware that they're going to collect it, and they didn't collect it. Here they've collected the tax and kept it. It seems a little odd. And I guess my question is, how is that calculated? Are we giving them the collection allowance even though they hadn't deliberately? I know it's a small dollar amount, but as far as going forward, is this something where we'll still allow penalty and interest even though they did collect the tax and then claimed they didn't know they were supposed to? Just kind of a question there. That's a weird one.
Okay,
Do we have Karen Ebright in the Reno
Yes.
conference room?
Yes, I'm here, Karen Ebright, Revenue Officer for the Department of Taxation. When they filed their returns, they did not take the collection allowance. They reported the full total sales for each of the quarters, and they're just requesting that we waive the penalty and interest. They paid everything in full.
Okay, well, I would make a motion then to approve item 3B18, website sales LLC waiver of penalty and interest.
Second.
there's a motion and a second. Further discussion?
So now I'm curious, Commissioner Byram, to better understand the context. I didn't understand the explanation. So could you explain that a little bit more clearly?
About collection allowance?
Yes, so
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so you may have a taxpayer that has both sales tax and use tax. And they might only have sales tax, but if they have combined, then they pay taxes directly to the state on things that they purchase from out of state, from an out of state vendor. They remit that directly. And then to their Nevada or to their sales, they will collect tax on their sales. And in your form, if you're collecting tax, you're acting as an agent for the state and you're putting money into trust that needs to be sent. So the state allows a collection allowance for entities for the sales tax, not the use tax side, because that's self-assessed, but to be an agent and do the collecting for the state. So there's I think it's a 1.25% collection allowance or kind of a discount that they get on the amount of taxes. So I was just wondering if they filled out the form and that automatically gave them a little discount, even though they hadn't remitted what they collected. So like they get a little benefit, even though they failed to do their part and they're getting penalty and interest back.
Right. So I understood your question. I didn't understand the answer. So did they get this discount? Sounds like they did.
No, she said that they did not claim the collection allowance.
Okay.
So it's the full tax amount. It's just a few $100s, but it was the principle that I was questioning.
Got it. Okay. I understood the question, not the answer. So,
Sorry.
So they weren't claiming that collection allowance.
Correct.
Right.
Oh, well,
Okay.
Karen, can you confirm?
Yes, that is correct. They did not collect the collection. They did not take the collection allowance.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is C11, Nevada Gold Mines LLC.
C1,
Oh, I apologize. I apologize. You're right. C1, THC Nevada LLC. Thank you.
Would make a motion to approve.
I second the motion to approve THC Nevada LLC.
Further discussion? There's a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
I'm sorry, could you tell me who made the motion, accepted the motion? I didn't hear
Commissioner
that.
Brown. Sorry.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Commissioner Brown made the motion. I apologize, Kathy.
Okay, thank you.
And Commissioner Johnson recused himself from that vote.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we get down to C11 Nevada Gold Mines.
Commissioner Brown would make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Witt, second.
Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Abstain.
One abstention. Motion passes. Thank you very much. And that takes us up to E2, Anthony and Charlotte Fredericks. Commissioner Lippman.
Yes, thank you. So this is a taxpayer who is asking for an offer, our approval of an offer and compromise. And when you look at the Fredericks tax return, so the reason for the offer is doubt as to collectability. So they're basically attesting they have a financial hardship. But if you look at the 2020 tax return, they have, that tax return indicates they have about $100,000 that they've received in Social Security benefits, which is curious because the taxpayers are young, not, one is 55, the other is about 62, so one could potentially collect. But then the next year, it appears that the Social Security benefits are, I think they said they're about $1,800 a month. So I'm trying to understand what that was in Social Security benefits that they have on their federal tax return. In addition, I believe it's the same tax year. They have about $12,000 in gambling winnings. And in 2019, they purchased a new BMW. And so I'm just struggling to understand the financial hardship. I understand. So, and perhaps there's some explanation for the Social Security benefits.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Arceo, are you available?
Good morning. For the record, Lizette Arceo for the department. The taxpayers, Mr. and Mrs. Frederickson, will not be available. Per Mr. Frederickson, he is started chemo treatment, so he can barely talk. So neither him or his wife are available to testify today. However, regarding the $93,000 that they received in Social Security, that's for for disability. Mr. Frederickson is now considered disabled. Therefore, he received payments from the time that he had requested the disability. That's where that money's coming from. And the department questioned the same things that Commissioner Lippman just brought up regarding the vehicle purchase and the gambling winnings, excuse me. We do not have the 2021 return. Therefore, we can't see if there's any gambling winnings. Obviously, in 2020, with the state being shut down, gambling was pretty much ceased. So the department did question them. Their biggest concern right now is that Mr. Frederickson did start undergoing chemotherapy, which is an additional cost that they have to pay for as well. And he's no longer working based on that.
Ms. Arceo, thank you for that explanation. I was thinking it perhaps could be an accumulation of a disability payment. That was what my guess was, because the fact pattern did indicate that he had back problems. And so that explanation makes sense to me because as many folks on this call probably know, trying to collect disability often takes an extended period of time, and then taxpayers do get back benefits. So that explanation did make sense. Unfortunately, for the taxpayer, a significant amount of those benefits then were included in taxable income because it was such a lump sum. And so one side of me was actually hoping it was an error, but it's not. And so thank you for those explanations. I appreciate it. So now I will move to approve the offer and compromise for Anthony and Cheryl Fredericks.
Commissioner Witt, second.
The motion is second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Director Hughes.
The next item on the agenda is item 4, Division Local Government Services. 4.1, certification of ad valorem tax rates for fiscal year 2022-23 pursuant to NRS 361.4547. And we have Kelly Langley representing the department.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. In your packet, you have a copy of the proposed property tax rates for the Nevada local governments for fiscal year 2022 and 2023, also known as the Red Book. Local Government Finance has reviewed the proposed tax rates and can recommend to you that all are within statutory limits. I'd like to draw your attention to Roman numeral page number 3, very front, of the property tax revenue dollars projected. This page indicates a total statewide assessed value, including net proceeds of minerals, of $161.4 billion, up from the prior year of $146.3 billion. We project this would generate approximately $5.3 billion in pre-abatement from property taxes, which would be up from last year of $4.69 billion. The schools get the lion's share of this amount, approximately 37.6%, and the state receives approximately 5.17%. This information on Roman numeral 3 is all prior to abatement. One of the interesting items we had this year in preparing the Red Book was in Elko County. Elko County School District had a 75-cent voter-approved tax rate set to expire June 30 of 22. The purpose of the funds was for capital projects, and the duration of the levy was for 10 years. The voters did not approve the ballot to renew this rate or a reduced rate. Many of the entities in Elko County had previously been capped at a combined tax rate of $3.66. So this was an opportunity to see a shift in the tax rate within their own entities. We had, of the 75 cents that became available from the school, we had Elko County that increased their tax rate by 50 cents. We had the cities, Carlin, Elko, West Wendover, Wells, increase theirs by 20 cents. And then we had Elko TV District increase by 5. So out of that 75-cent reduction from the schools, the majority of the taxpayers saw no change unless they didn't have Elko TV on their portion of the bills, then they saw a 5-cent reduction. But that was probably the most debated component. Due to the tax shifts discussed, most payers saw that overall tax rate reduction of 5 cents. On the very last page of the book, you'll see the tax cap factors. The residential tax cap is set at a maximum of 3%. Each county had a general cap factor based on the higher of either the 10-year rolling average growth rate in their assessed value, or twice the CPI, which was equal to 9.4%. That's well above the 8% maximum for general cap rate for 22-23. Let's see, the statewide average for the general cap was 8 this year, which is up from 6.7 the prior year. This is the first time in a long time that both the residential cap and the general cap hit the maximum 3 and 8% for all counties. So across the board, they're all the same. The department requests the commission certify the combined tax rates as submitted. The combined tax rates are reflected in Section A, Column 5, and Section B, Column 9, otherwise known as the Red Book in 22-23. At this time, I'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
Good, thank you very much. You're working off the revised edition?
Yes.
Okay.
Correction. There was the errata page that was provided late last week, and that was because we had a calculation error with Panoka Town due to Panoka Fire District had been acquired or absorbed by Lincoln County Fire District.
Okay, good. Any questions? A motion.
Commissioner Brown would move to approve.
Second, Commissioner Roediger.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Director Hughes.
So we'll move on to agenda item 5, the compliance division. Agenda item 5A, approval of refund credit request in excess of $250,000. The first item under 5A is Terra Data Operations, Inc. And we have Chris Carrillo for the department.
Good morning, commissioners. This is Chris Carrillo, Audit Manager with Department of Taxation. Is there anything in particular about Teradata? I'm not sure where to start. Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yes, Chris.
We're here. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so Teradata was a credit refund request where the taxpayer's client had, I guess, purchased a bunch of items and then returned them at a later date. And then the taxpayer filed an amended return for those returns as well.
Okay, so nothing out of the ordinary?
Nothing out of the ordinary. They did issue a credit memo to their clients, and then during the review, I had requested associated documents such as the credit memo, as well as the original invoices to verify that the sale took place and then was indeed credited back to their customer.
Okay, and the total amount is $689,621?
I do not have that number in front of me right now. Bear with me. I believe that is correct. My apologies. Just want to confirm it. 689,621?
Yes.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you very much. I entertain a motion.
I would move to approve it.
Commissioner Lippman seconds the motion.
Motion is second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Director Hughes.
Item 5A2, Zurich American Insurance Company. We have Jolynn Smith representing the department.
Good morning. For the record, Jolynn Smith, Tax Manager for the Department of Taxation. Today, the department's recommending approval of a credit refund in the amount of $669,854. This is for the overpayment of their industrial insurance premium for Zurich American Insurance Company for tax year 2021. After processing the taxpayer's reconciliation return for the 2021 tax year, the department reviewed and verified the taxpayer filed and paid each of their quarterly industrial insurance premium tax returns. However, they didn't apply their Division of Industrial Relations credits to their quarters ending March 31, June 30, September 30, and December 31, 2021. The discrepancy was discovered by the taxpayer when they filed their annual reconciliation return for that year reporting period, resulting in an overpayment and resulting in a credit of $669,854. The department is recommending the refund.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
Jolynn, this is Commissioner Rutherford. Just a quick question. Have they instituted any procedures to ensure that they don't make this mistake again in the future?
I haven't verified that, and to be honest, we see this a lot with the companies. They file and pay their quarterly returns, then when they're filing their recon returns, I don't know, maybe they have somebody else reviewing it, and they catch it at that time that, oh wait, we had an industrial relations credit that we should have taken.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Motion?
Commissioner Lippman moves to approve the refund claim.
Commissioner Bursey seconds.
Motion is second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Director Hughes.
The next item is 5A3, Sierra Health and Life Insurance Company. And again, we have Jolynn Smith representing the department.
Again, Jolynn Smith, tax manager for the department. Today, the department's recommending the approval of a credit refund in the amount of $375,736.74 for the overpayment of the insurance premium tax for Sierra Health and Life Insurance Company for tax year 2021. After processing the taxpayer's reconciliation return for the 2021 tax year, the department reviewed and verified the taxpayer filed and paid their quarterly insurance premium tax returns timely. However, they did not apply their life and health insurance guarantee fund association credit for the quarter ending December 31st, 2021. The discrepancy was discovered by the taxpayer when they filed and reported their annual reconciliation return. Therefore, the department is recommending the refund of $375,736.74.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions?
Commissioner Brown, to approve.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
Ms. Smith, we don't pay interest to the taxpayer on these refund claims. Isn't that true?
That's correct. There is no interest given for insurance premium tax refunds.
Thank you.
Commissioner Brown has made a motion. Can I have a second?
Commissioner Johnson, second.
Mr. Johnson, thank you. Any motion is second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Director Hughes.
Item 5A4, Microsoft Corporation. We have Nadia Vasheko for the department.
Good morning, members of the Commission. Nadia Vasheko, tax manager for the department. Microsoft Corporation filed amended return for the period ending September 30th, 2021 to claim commerce tax credit. Department verified that amount and determined that according to NRS 363B, Section 110, subsection 4, the refund of $284,577.27 should be granted.
Thank you. Any questions?
Commissioner Lippman moves to approve the refund for Microsoft Corporation.
Commissioner Bursey seconds.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Director Hughes.
The next item is 5A5, Bonitel LLC. And for the department, we have Jennifer Roebuck.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. For the record, I am Jennifer Roebuck, Deputy Director for the Department's Compliance Division. Bonitel LLC requested a refund for overpayment of commerce tax for the tax years ending June 30, 2017 and 2018. The taxpayer's basis for the refund is due to incorrectly cited revenue. The department audited the refund request and determined that commerce tax was overpaid. As part of this refund request, the taxpayer amended subsequent commerce tax returns for tax years ending in 2019, 20, and 21. They also amended the modified business tax returns for the related periods in order to true up the commerce tax credits taken. Upon receipt of the amendments, the department recalculated the refund, including any existing debits and credits on the account, resulting in a net of $389,537.97. The department is recommending approval. And I believe we have Nadia Vasheko, tax manager for the department in Las Vegas, and available for questions on the amended returns.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing none?
Commissioner Lippman moves to approve the refund claim for Bonitel LLC.
Commissioner Witt, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Director Hughes.
The next item is 5B, petition for reconsideration of department's denial of exemption status for organization created for religious, charitable, or educational purposes pursuant to NRS 372.3261. The first item, Quest for Kindness, was withdrawn. So we'll have the second item, which is International Association of Marine Investigators, Inc. We have Ross Olson, Deputy Attorney General, representing the department.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. So this is an appeal of a denial of a sales tax exemption. International Association of Marine Investigators applied in September of 2021 for a exemption from sales and use tax as an educational organization that's provided in NRS 372.3261. In late November, the organization provided some additional material through their secretary treasurer, Mr. Pat Rowland, and the information showed that they are planning to hold a seminar in Las Vegas in late February 2023. And it's an organization that caters to, it is a membership organization for law enforcement and marine professionals. After reviewing their materials, the department denied the request for exemption, and they have appealed the denial.
Okay, thank you. Is there a representative from Marine Investigators?
Yes, sir. Kerry McCook representing IAMI.
Okay, go ahead.
Sure, thanks. Appreciate having the time to speak this morning. I know that you have much more important things to do than talk about our little organization. So thank you very much. As outlined in the brief filed by the Attorney General's office, the original denial was twofold. It was not meeting the definition of educational organization and not showing the exemption will be used for the educational purposes in Nevada. Going over the brief, it seems that the second part seems to be agreed upon. There is still a question of if we meet the definition of educational organization specifically. The department's position is that we do not benefit the community as a whole. And that's kind of what I wanted to speak about for just a couple of minutes here. So IAMI's training programs on marine insurance fraud and boat theft are really designed, for our law enforcement members, but are designed to help those law enforcement members get training not otherwise provided by the states, and designed to return money and perhaps property back to the pockets of the citizens of Nevada. Specifically with insurance fraud, it's an $80 billion a year problem. Admittedly, a small part of that is in the marine market, but it's still $80 million of extra insurance premiums that are being paid that we're trying to attack here. IAME training focuses on making the law enforcement personnel aware of the problem through identification techniques and lessons on insurance company procedures and reporting. And that identification leads to the interest, which leads to the prosecution, which can lead to the prevention. Moving on from insurance fraud, specifically regarding boat theft, one of the reasons the Nevada Department of Wildlife has requested us come to the state of Nevada for our next international training seminar is our marine identification group of courses. These hull identification number, registration number, engine outdrive serial number training, all crucial to uncovering the history of a vessel. And historically, while Nevada is not near the top 5 states where stolen boats are recorded, California is right next door, and those boats are going through the state of Nevada and are very much touching the Nevada Department of Wildlife law enforcement personnel. So this is a large reason why the Nevada Department of Wildlife is sponsoring and hosting us. This is training that's been requested by law enforcement agencies in Florida, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Missouri, Maryland, District of Columbia, Mississippi, as well as major insurance companies, both domestically and internationally. These skills are crucial to investigators in the field and title clerks in the Nevada Department of Wildlife Titling Office. Being able to identify these anomalies and identification numbers can lead to identification of altered documents and fraudulent transactions, which of course can return property to their rightful owners. As we mentioned, our conference will be sponsored by the state of Nevada Department of Wildlife in NDOW. We've been working with Nevada Boating Law Administrator Brian Bowles to make our conference a success and make sure the training that we're providing is targeted toward things that the state of Nevada wants. And it's also going to allow the state of Nevada to pass along their knowledge to other states and other delegates. As an example, the Nevada Department of Wildlife is one of the only organizations in the U.S. that does salvage titling for boats. So mostly that's just automobiles, but Nevada goes the extra mile. The ability to work with NDOW to further their education serves a common good to the boating and recreation community of Nevada. The 350 employees of NDOW are charged with the pursuit of wildlife and habitat conservation, law enforcement, recreational boating safety, education, and resource management. So one of the points that the brief from the Attorney General states is that IAME does not relieve the government of any financial burdens to achieve training. Well, it actually does, because we're bringing this training to NDOW by a greatly reduced cost, because we're holding our international seminar, and in exchange for NDOW helping us, they're getting a reduced cost that's paid for by passing on those costs to the other delegates. I believe it's true to say that IAME's presence and training in Nevada is going to make the Nevada Department of Wildlife better, which makes Nevada better for its citizens that engage in marine recreation. The benefits surrounding the recreational marine community being safe cannot be understated. Over the past 2.5 years, there are 155 reported boating accidents on the Nevada waterways, with countless others unreported. Our accident investigation, scene documentation, report writing training that NDOW is going to receive, along with our other delegates, is crucial to understanding how each accident can be preventable to keep our boaters safe in the future and benefit the boating community in Nevada as a whole. Regardless, our organization is excited to return to in-person learning in the COVID pandemic, excited to be back in Nevada for the first time since 2019. And again, thank you all very much. I know you're very busy with much more important matters. Thank you for your time, and I'll accept questions or anything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. McCook? Mr. Olson, anything else?
Just a brief response. The department doesn't question the value of the worthiness of what IAMI looks to provide. We're here for a very narrow purpose. It's to determine whether IAMI qualifies for a sales and use tax exemption. Here, the department will simply rely on the brief that just under the law, it does not qualify as an educational organization because while there are any Nevada case, there's no Nevada case law on point. The other jurisdictions have routinely denied these types of requests. Also, the event that they are coming for, there's very limited interaction and very limited involvement and operation in Nevada. They're coming for one event and they've been here once before in the last 30 years or so. So with that, we would say that the department's position is that the denial is appropriate and that we would ask to uphold the denial.
Okay, we've been very consistent on this, and I agree with you. I would entertain a motion.
I would move to uphold the department's denial of the sales and use tax waiver.
Commissioner Witt, second.
Commissioner Brown has made a motion. Commissioner Witt seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. Okay.
Good morning. Thank you.
Director Hughes.
The next item is 5C, Department's request for approval of motion to dismiss taxpayers' appeal and affirm the decision of the administrative law judge. The first item under that agenda item is Super Nutrition, LLC, DBA Nutrition Rush. We have Andrea Nichols, Senior Deputy Attorney General, representing the department.
Good morning. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Good morning. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. For the record, Senior Deputy Attorney General Andrea Nichols appearing on behalf of the Nevada Department of Taxation. I'm just wondering if there's a taxpayer representative here at all?
If there is a taxpayer representative for Super Nutrition LLC doing business as Nutrition Rush, please raise your hand in Zoom or dial *9.
There does not appear to be.
There does not appear to be.
Okay, well, very briefly, the administrative law judge for the department issued a decision on January 13th of 2020. The taxpayer, Mr. Velasquez Diaz, indicated that he wanted to appeal. The department has sent him 4 or 5, I believe it's 5 letters. The first letter just acknowledging the appeal and requesting a brief. And then there were several follow-up letters asking him to just please submit a brief, let us know that he's not going to submit a brief. And the department has not received any response. I do believe he has contacted department representatives by telephone. That was relayed to me. I haven't received any communication from the taxpayer myself. So we're just requesting that the tax commission dismiss this more than 2-year-old appeal and uphold the decision of the administrative law judge that again was issued January 13th of 2020.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to dismiss the taxpayer's appeal and uphold the ALJ decision in the matter of Super Nutrition doing business as Nutrition Rush.
Thank you. Second?
Commissioner Lippman seconds the motion.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second for the discussion. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners.
Director Hughes.
The next item on the agenda is item 6, regulations. 6A is consideration for the adoption of permanent regulation LCB file number R052-21. And for the department, we have Melissa Flatley.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Chairman, Commissioners. I'll be presenting for adoption today proposed regulation LCB file number R052-21. The regulations to implement Senate Bill 389 of the 2021 legislative session. For the record, my name is Melissa Flatley. I'm the Chief Deputy Executive Director of the department. Before I begin my review of the regulation, I'd like to remind the Commission of the administrative rulemaking process under NRS 233B. When the legislature authorizes the department to adopt regulations to effectuate enrolled legislation, the department drafts language and submits it to the Legislative Council Bureau, or LCB, for review. LCB reviews the language and determines whether the proposed regulation is consistent with the statutory authority given by the legislature and meets other drafting conventions adopted by LCB. After LCB approves the proposed language and returns it to the department holds a workshop to present the proposed language and to take public comment. After the workshop, the department considers public comment and may make revisions to the proposed regulation. If the revisions are substantive change from the language received from LCB, the proposed regulation must be reviewed again by LCB. If not, the regulation may proceed to an adoption hearing like the one today. If you adopt the proposed regulation, it is sent to LCB and forwarded to the Legislative Commission for review and approval. If the Legislative Commission approves the regulation, it is filed with the Secretary of State, and only then is the regulation effective. With that process in mind, I'll now walk through each section of the regulation and then provide a brief procedural background before concluding the department's presentation.
Chairman, may I interrupt for 1 minute?
Yes, go ahead.
I apologize for interrupting, but Ms. Flatley, this question has really been front on my mind. What could you tell? I don't quite understand what peer-to-peer car sharing is.
Sure. Melissa Flatley for the record. So peer-to-peer car sharing is where a vehicle owner enters into an agreement with a car sharing program to make their vehicle available to a driver that also enters into an agreement with the car sharing program. So the car sharing program, the peer-to-peer is the shared vehicle owner and the shared vehicle driver. The car sharing program is the app or service that hosts the shared vehicle owners to match with the shared vehicle drivers.
So is this Uber and Lyft?
No. Okay, so I'm familiar with a few of the services that are available. And there's an app you can go on and you look for a vehicle that's available to use. For example, I used it in San Diego. You go on the app and the driver meets you with their personal vehicle and you drive away in their personal vehicle for a few days and you pay through the app, you pay a fee to use their vehicle.
Oh my goodness, thank you.
Commissioner, I sat in on that workshop and I basically had the same questions because I had never heard of it. I do use Uber and Lyft quite a bit.
Yes.
It seems like a lot of liability to me for this whole thing.
Exactly. So thank you for that, because I was just trying to imagine what this was. And so that context really does help your explanation. So thank you. And I apologize for interrupting. Thank you.
You're welcome. It was the only way I could drive a Tesla Model X without having to buy one myself.
Perfect.
All right. So Senate Bill 389 of the 2021 legislative session, codified in Chapter 482C of the NRS, governs the licensing and operation of peer-to-peer car sharing programs, which connect shared vehicle owners with shared vehicle drivers. By statute, the car sharing program is responsible to collect and remit sales tax on behalf of the shared vehicle owner if the sales or use tax has not been paid on the shared vehicle. Before a shared vehicle is made available for sharing by a car sharing program, NRS 482C.240 requires the peer-to-peer car sharing program to request from the shared vehicle owner an electronic certification as to whether the shared vehicle owner paid all sales or use taxes due on the purchase of the vehicle. Section 2 of this regulation requires a person who operates a peer-to-peer car sharing program to provide the department upon request with proof that the car sharing program has obtained or attempted to obtain the required certification from each shared vehicle owner who places a vehicle on the digital network or software application of the program. Section 2 also specifies the information that must be included in the certification and requires a shared vehicle owner who has paid sales and use taxes due on the purchase of the vehicle to retain certain documentation evidencing the payment. If a shared vehicle owner provides incorrect or false information regarding the payment of sales and use taxes, Section 2 provides that the shared vehicle owner is liable for any sales or use tax due on the purchase of the vehicle, measured by the gross charges for the sharing of the vehicle, plus any applicable interest and penalties. Section 3 of the regulation requires each operator of a peer-to-peer car sharing program to submit to the department at the end of each calendar quarter a report containing specified information about each shared vehicle placed on the program's platform during the preceding quarter. Practically speaking, the operation of the regulation is straightforward. Statute requires that every vehicle added to the car sharing program after October 1st, 2021 must have an attestation that the sales or use tax was paid, where the car sharing program is required to collect the sales tax on the gross charges for the shared vehicle and remit the taxes to the state of Nevada. Section 2 of the regulation sets out the required contents of the attestation, the name of the shared vehicle owner, information about the vehicle, and the sworn attestation of the shared vehicle owner as to the truthfulness of their disclosure. The electronic certification is made available to the department upon its request. In addition to the record of the attestation that the car sharing program must retain, the regulation imposes a quarterly reporting requirement on the car sharing program. This report lists all vehicles made available on the car sharing platform, including shared vehicle owner information, information about the vehicle, and whether the sales and use tax has been paid on the vehicle. The information contained in the report is necessary for administration of taxes. If the sales and use tax has not been paid on the shared vehicle, the car sharing program, again, is responsible to collect and remit the sales tax. Further, when the department performs an audit, if an attestation is found to be false, the department must have the means to contact the vehicle owner and collect the sales tax measured by the gross charges for the sharing of the vehicle, along with applicable interest and penalties for failure to pay tax. The department recognizes the private and confidential nature of the business papers of the car sharing program. Pursuant to NRS 360.255, any information received regarding the shared vehicle owners, as well as the car sharing program and any information regarding the shared vehicle drivers, is confidential and privileged because it concerns the administration or collection of sales and use taxes. Additionally, information regarding sales and use tax that may be remitted by the car sharing programs can only be released in a statistical format that would prevent the identification of any particular business or document, thereby protecting any trade secrets of the car sharing program. Finally, NRS 482C.245 authorized the department to adopt regulations that specify the types of records that must be kept by a car sharing program to determine the fees and taxes owed in connection with the operation of the program. Section 4 of this regulation sets forth the records to be retained regarding the payment of sales or use tax on the shared vehicles and the period for which they must be retained. This regulation is being presented to you after extensive work with industry and legislative counsel bureau. The department submitted the proposed language to LCB in October 2021 after cooperatively working with the peer-to-peer car sharing platforms regarding the reporting requirements. LCB returned the language to the department in March 2022, and the department sent the draft out for responses from small business. No comments were returned. The department reviewed the language of the regulation and using informed, reasonable judgment, determined that the regulation would have no impact on small businesses beyond that imposed by statute. The department noticed and held the workshop on RO 52-21 on May 17th, 2022. As Chairman Wren said, he was in attendance. There was no public comment received at the workshop. At this time, the department asks the commission to adopt RO 52-21 as presented. I'm also available for your questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any additional questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple questions for Ms. Flatley.
Go right ahead.
Does this program anticipate that there will be vehicles only from Nevada in the program or from any state?
Melissa Flatley, for the record, right now, so the statute says any vehicle on the car sharing platform.
Right. So my question on the attestation of sales tax paid seems that it would be easier to just ask if you're a Nevada license, if it's licensed in Nevada. If it's licensed in Nevada and it was a dealer sale, taxes have been paid one way or the other. If it's a private party sale, it's not taxed when it's registered because it was taxed when it was originally sold. And so if I have a vehicle that I bought in a private party sale and I registered it, I didn't pay taxes, but taxes were appropriately paid on it when it was originally sold and purchased, whether in Nevada or not. But it doesn't indicate in this language anywhere that it requires Nevada sales tax to be paid. So people can be coming in from California with a California licensed vehicle. Nevada may never get any sales tax from it, yet we're requiring the owner that's putting it into this program to show that they've paid tax. It doesn't mean it was Nevada tax, just any tax, or if it were, it would be simple if it was just limited to Nevada, but the statute didn't really indicate that it was that limited. But the language of the regulation just says, prove that you paid sales and use tax, not that you paid it to Nevada or that it was a Nevada vehicle. So I'm just kind of curious how they're going to manage that. I think it's a clever program and it's new, it's moving forward, and a lot of people have a spare vehicle that could be made use of, and people that would like to just use a vehicle and not own one. I think it's a good program. I'm just curious logistically how we've got to make this attestation, if it's just a sworn statement and a signature, or if you have to prove it by an invoice, or how that's going to work when you're dealing with multiple states rather than just dealing with the state of Nevada.
Melissa Flatley, thank you, Commissioner Byram. The statute doesn't limit the vehicles on the platform to only Nevada vehicles. So we recognize that challenge. However, if in the regulation there is language specific to the documents that can be provided to support whether sales tax was paid or not, if it was a private party sale, there would still be some evidence of that transaction, so they could show whether the tax was excused in that transaction or not applicable to that transaction.
Right.
As far as out of state, I think it would be a yes or no answer, and then there would be further evaluation of the applicability to the vehicle being in Nevada. I could force hypothetically, there could be a vehicle, an out-of-state registered vehicle being used in having that car sharing occur in Nevada. And I don't know what that would, I mean, if they bought the car in a state where there was no sales tax, but they live, maybe the person lives here, the vehicle owner lives in Nevada, and it should be registered in Nevada. I mean, these are all hypotheticals, but it's a way to enforce the sales and use tax collection in that instance.
Okay, I have another quick question. It appears that the program, whoever's going to be the operator of the program, is going to be handling a 10% government services tax. So that is a compensation to the state. How, it seems like this competes with rental car companies, and it doesn't show that there was any financial impact declared by rental car companies. Was there just none anticipated? Is this not really thought to be competition?
I just want to clarify, this regulation is only pertaining to section 11.5 of the bill about the sales and use tax attestation. It's not related to the government services fee and the collection of that fee. As far as legislative testimony on the competition with rental cars, I can see where there are some provisions here that they talk about gross charges rather than calling it a rental, and they call it use. So I'm sure that was very intentional in the statutory language, but that's beyond the scope of today's regulation.
Well, but today's regulation talks about if you haven't paid the taxes initially when you bought or sold the vehicle, then you're going to be charging it on the value of the rental, just like sales tax applies to rentals.
It's on the gross charges from the use of the vehicle.
Right, which falls into other language that says it's a tax on a rental. It's a sale that's a rental.
I'm sorry, I understood your question to be asking about 11.3 in the statute with the transaction fee, which is outside of the scope of the regulation presented.
Right, I'm back to sales tax. Sorry if I'm jumping around.
I just want to make sure we were talking about the same thing.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around this because I hadn't heard about it when it was initially went through, and I've read the statute and I'm trying to understand it. I just want to make sure that we've got this set up so that it doesn't come back in a few months and they say, we should have limited it to Nevada, or we should have done this or that. I just wanted to make sure I understand that this is going to be something that can be administered appropriately by the state and understood.
So the statute is similar to collecting sales tax on a rental stream. Because if sales tax isn't paid on the purchase of the vehicle, then, and it's not, and the attestation is found to be false, then they have to submit the sales tax calculated from the gross charges for use of the vehicle.
Right. Okay, that was all the questions I had. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Commissioner Lippman, I'm trying to get to the abuse that we're concerned about, and it sounds like Commissioner Byram has helped me understand that, but I believe it would be someone who has a out-of-state car that is not registered in Nevada, and they are using it in Nevada for peer-to-peer car sharing. Is that the abuse that we're trying to make sure doesn't happen?
Melissa Flatley, for the record, yes, we want to make sure that the vehicles that are being used in Nevada have appropriately had the sales tax paid if owed to Nevada. And the way we can confirm that is by looking at the shared vehicle ownership, matching that with the registration on the vehicle, and considering the sales and use tax that would be owed then.
So I am a bit concerned that the scope is overbroad. So if this is a national platform, there could be a car that is used in New York and that is on the platform, and New York sales tax was paid, but yet we still need an attestation for that car?
The way the statute is written, it's any vehicle on the car sharing program.
So the answer is yes. And I guess the way for companies to try to circumvent the extent of the documentation would be to have a separate Nevada platform, I guess. Try to segregate their platforms.
Yeah, so the definition of car sharing program is the program that's registered with the Department of Motor Vehicles. And that's in section 5 of the legislation. And I'm not familiar with how industry is going to pursue setting up their programs to meet that effect or meet that issue. There may be representatives from the industry to make public comment that could maybe provide some insight.
Well, I suppose at the workshops, there was no pushback as to the scope, is what you testified to, correct?
That's correct.
Mm-hmm. Well, it will be interesting because I have not seen one of these apps, so I don't know if they are nationwide. Uh,
So,
but-
you-
Yep.
May I interject?
yeah, go ahead.
Commissioner Lippman brings up a good point. I don't see where this requires the use to be within the state of Nevada either. And so are we reaching over our jurisdictional boundaries and taxing a transaction that occurs completely outside of the state? If we
Melissa,
have-
I'm sorry, excuse me.
Go ahead.
Melissa Flatley for the record. So again, the provision in the statute says any car on the car sharing program. The regulation has been vetted by LCB to be consistent with the statutory authority granted by the legislature.
You know, really the big question is how do you track it? Do you track the app? Are the cars registered via the app or the state? That's all yes?
Do you track, I'm
I
sorry.
mean, how's it going to, you know, how are you going to know if I decide to lease my car out to Commissioner Brown? And I say, Commissioner Brown, you can use this car, my driveway that I don't use for a week for $1. That's what you're saying people do, correct?
So we're not
How do you track that?
This is Melissa. We're not calling it a lease, just to be clear. It is, and it's not an individual agreement between the car owner and the car driver. The car sharing program that's registered with the state of Nevada is hosting the vehicles available for the drivers to use. In order for the vehicle, what this regulation is providing guidelines for is the statutory requirement that in order for the vehicle to be made available on the program, there needs to be an attestation filed by the vehicle owner that the sales or use tax has been paid. This isn't related to the use of the vehicle or where it may occur, but in order to be listed on the car sharing program, this attestation needs to be filed by the vehicle owner.
Okay. You know, and I asked this question at the workshop also because I hadn't heard about this either. There are only a couple companies registered. Is that correct? I mean, it's confusing, but it's at the end of the day, it's not going to be a big ticket item. I don't believe.
I am not aware of how many programs have registered with the DMV, but the information that the government services taxes that have been paid, because this statute became effective in October of last year or July of last year, we've had to aggregate that with other data because we don't want the limited number of taxpayers to be identified.
Okay.
Generally, that means there are fewer than 3.
Okay. That's kind of what I thought. Okay. Clear as mud.
I know. Thank you for your patience.
Any other
Okay,
questions?
Chairman, it does look like we have a potential, perhaps somebody who has some information from industry. Michael Alonso has raised his hand. At least I can see it on my screen.
Okay, Tina?
Yes. Mr. Alonso?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
So, Mr. Chairman and members of the Nevada Tax Commission, I'm Michael Alonso, and I'm here on behalf of Turo. And Turo is a peer-to-peer platform provider. And just to give a little bit of context to the issue on sales tax, the sort of the underlying issue that was raised that led to that language in the statute. The rental car companies typically take advantage of the sales tax exemption that's provided in Nevada law and then pay if you're going to use the asset on a rental, and then you pay it on the transaction by transaction basis. So the rental car companies were trying to have language added that we would have to charge sales tax on the transaction by transaction basis, regardless of whether the vehicle owner had paid the sales tax or use tax already. And the legislators didn't like that approach because it was essentially double taxation. And so this is what we ended up with. And we worked with the department on this all through, I think, the legislative session. And we also worked with the department after the session, and somehow something got lost and we didn't participate in the workshop. I wasn't aware of it. I'm sure that's my fault. Turo didn't participate either. And so that, you know, I apologize for however that happened, but that's the context of sort of how this came about, is that there's, you know, the rental car companies take that exemption when they buy their fleets. They don't pay sales tax to the state, and then they pay it, collect it, remit it on a transaction by transaction basis. And our position was the vast majority of the vehicle drivers are just like you and me, and they're buying a car, they're paying sales tax on it. They're not applying for a sales tax exemption. They're paying the sales tax, and then they're going to pay the government services tax and the other fees required by SB 389, but they wouldn't have to pay the sales tax or use tax if they've already paid it. And so that's how this process came about. We did work with staff on back in September, October, and the department to come up with the language. The reason I'm here today is really just a concern that I shared with the director and staff over subsection 2A of section 3, which requires us to provide in the quarterly report the name and contact information of the shared vehicle owner. And the concern that we have with that has to do with a couple of things. One is, in our agreement with the vehicle owner, we provide for privacy and confidentiality. We're also concerned under the Federal Stored Communications Act that we're potentially violating that act by providing the name and contact information. And there's been some cases out of New York, I think Massachusetts, where those types of requirements were either narrowed or struck down by the court because of those privacy issues under the Fourth Amendment and the Stored Communications Act. And I'm not an expert on those privacy issues, so I'm giving you what I know, what I understand. And I provided links to those cases to the director and Ms. Flatley and others. So that's the real issue that we have, is just having to provide the name and contact information of the shared vehicle owner. We're happy to provide all the other information. And the department does have audit rights under SB 389. And so we want to work with the department to get them the information. We're not trying to get out of an obligation. It's just that subsection A is the issue of concern for us, because we may be, by providing that information, we may be violating federal law, we may be violating our own agreement. That's the concern we have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of Mr. Alonso? Commissioner Brown?
This is Commissioner Brown. No questions. I was not aware that Mr. Alonso was involved in this case. I would just like to make a disclosure that Mr. Alonso is a consultant for AT&T, my employer, and out of an abundance of caution, I just won't be participating in this approval.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. I understand your concerns. Ms. Flatley, I think that you indicated that as far as disclosure from whatever information the state gets, you can't disclose anything back out other than statistical information, correct?
That's correct.
So this information stays confidential.
This is Melissa Flatley. Yes, that's correct. So the vehicle owner's name and contact information would be a confidential and privileged record of the department. May I respond about the cases that Mr. Alonso mentioned?
Sure.
So the one case in particular was Airbnb versus New York City, and New York City had implemented an ordinance that required a lot of information to be provided about rental units because of including capacity and the type of housing it was and who stayed there. And there was no restriction on how New York City could release or use that data. In fact, they intended to turn it over for enforcement purposes to find the residential owners.
Okay.
So that's one distinguishing factor. Also, that case was a preliminary injunction. So it was a likelihood of success, but not a decision on the merits of whether the ordinance was valid or violated the SCA or other privacy Fourth Amendment concerns. And ultimately, Airbnb entered into a settlement agreement. New York City issued a press release about it that required similar information to what is now in our regulation, with a quarterly report involving the owner name and some of the more limited scope of information about the rental units. So our regulation, I think, is consistent with the ultimate resolution in that case, plus the additional privacy and confidentiality provisions we have provide that protection that New York City didn't have for Airbnb.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments?
My only comment, Mr. Chairman, if I may, this is Michael Alonso for the record again.
Go ahead.
Is that I think, and I'm not an expert on those cases, and I will take what Ms. Flatley provided on face value. I don't have enough information to be able to refute that, and so I assume that all to be the case. The issue is whether or not we're violating the privacy of that person who's on our platform. And SB 389 provides that the DMV is required to provide information to the department upon request, essentially. And so our contention is that if we provide the license plate number, the VIN number, all of the certification, all that information to the department, if they still have a question about the contact information, name of the shared vehicle, they can, for those vehicles that are registered in the state of Nevada, they can get that from the DMV. They don't need to get it from us. And so in most cases, I think this was part of the discussion early on amongst the board members. Somebody could certainly not be registered, have their vehicle registered in Nevada, and be using it on the platform. For example, their cars registered in California, and normally as people who have used this service, you have to be present, right? The car has to be delivered. So if somebody is utilizing that vehicle in Nevada, they're going to either have it in Nevada, in which case within a certain period of time, they'd be required to register with the DMV, or they'd be violating that statute. But because I think we're trying to focus on, at least we think the intent of this was for vehicles that are shared within the state of Nevada, not vehicles that are shared in the state of New York or somewhere else.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this is Sharon, Commissioner Byram. I think with any new law, there's going to be some amendments down the road, but I think this is a good starting point with some unknowns. There might be some unintended consequences that we'll have to deal with later, but I think this is good language for the purposes. And so I would move to approve the regulation, LCB file number R052-21.
We may want to ask for any other public comment before the vote.
Commissioner Bursey seconds.
Okay. Before I accept that, I'm going to ask if there's any public comment on this. Any public comment in Carson City? Any public comment in Las Vegas?
There's no public comment.
Thank you. Any public comment on the telephone?
If you're on the telephone or on Zoom, please dial *9 or raise your hand to be put into the queue. And I don't see any public comment.
Okay, seeing no public comment, I've got a motion by Commissioner Byram and a second by Commissioner Bursey. Further discussion?
Commissioner Lippman, Ms. Flatley, does when you forward this to LCB, if we do go ahead and approve it, will you forward the cases that the industry has provided and it's concerned? So I'm sure that they'll look at this again, maybe with that input. Is that true?
Melissa Flatley, for the record, yes, it is. It will be included in the public comment that was received for today's adoption hearing. And the regulation will also be heard at the Legislative Commission, and there will be another opportunity for public comment before the Legislative Commission before they approve the adoption of the regulation.
Excellent, thank you. So there's more opportunities to be heard, Mr. Alonso.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I'll abstain.
One abstention. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Director Hughes.
The next item on the agenda is item 7, informational items. We have 7A, penalty and interest waivers granted by the department for sales use tax, modified business tax, and excise tax. And then item 7B, approval and denial status report log for organizations created for religious, charitable, or educational purposes. These items were included in your packet and are for informational only, purposes only. And then the next item is item 8, briefing, and that is my briefing to the commission. Today, I only have a few items for you. First, the Federation of Tax Administrators held its annual conference last week, which was June 21st through June 24th in Scottsdale, Arizona. Deputy Director Jennifer Roebuck and I attended this conference where we attended several informative presentations, and we learned how other states are handling matters such as hiring issues, remote work, and taxes on cannabis and digital goods, just to name a few. And then on Friday night, the Nevada State Bar recognized Commissioner Bursey's service as a past president of the State Bar, where she, along with 8 other female past presidents of the bar, received the Brian K. Scott Trailblazer Award. The Trailblazer Award is presented to members of the State Bar who exemplify the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion in Nevada's legal community. Commissioner Bursey was only the 3rd female president of the State Bar since the first president served in 1927. She served as the president of the State Bar in 1999 through 2000. So I just wanted to recognize Commissioner Bursey.
Wow, congratulations. That's wonderful.
The next item is regarding the department's bill draft requests, or we call them BDRs. A bill draft request is a request submitted to the Legislative Council Bureau proposing additions, deletions, and/or changes to the Nevada revised statutes. At this time, the department has only general information to provide to the commission because the budget and accepted proposed legislation has not been approved or released from the governor's office. Today, I can tell you about the process and timeline for submitting the department's request to the governor's office and give a general overview of what the department has proposed. The process and timeline of submitting proposed bill draft requests is determined by the governor's office, and this year was presented at the budget kickoff on March 9th, 2022. Non-budgetary BDRs are those bills having a fiscal impact of less than $2,000 and are housekeeping measures, and they were submitted to the governor's office on June 1st. The department has 3 proposals under consideration. The first proposed legislation is to remedy a failure to comply with the terms of the Streamlined Sales and Use Tax Agreement caused by the sales tax holiday for members of the Nevada National Guard and their families, which was created by SB 440 in the 2021 session. This legislation required that the qualified Nevada National Guard members make tax-exempt purchases needed to provide a certificate to the sellers for the purchase to be exempted from sales tax, which is prohibited by the Streamlined Sales and Use Tax Agreement. The Streamlined Sales and Use Tax Agreement Executive Committee made a recommendation to the governing board to impose sanctions on Nevada, prohibiting the state from participating in votes on other states' compliance. And if not corrected by the 2023 legislature, they can consider further sanctions against Nevada. So in order to remain a member of the Streamlined Sales and Use Tax Agreement with full voting privileges, it's important to remedy the issues identified And the department, the governor, and the members of the legislature will continue to work on language to accomplish this goal. The next proposed legislation is to make various clarifying changes to the commerce tax in NRS Chapter 363C. And the final proposed non-budgetary legislation is to clarify the payment of interest under NRS 360-2935 on refunds of taxes over-collected by the taxpayer. These general concepts are currently under review with the governor's office, and any adopted by the governor will be sent to the Legislative Council Bureau at the end of July. The final language is not public until the BDR is presented to the relevant committees during the 2023 legislative session. The department has also been working on our agency budget, which is due along with any budgetary BDRs on September 1st, 2022. We've been instructed that our agency request budget for the 2023-2025 biennium shall not exceed 2 times the department's fiscal year 2023 legislatively approved funding level. We are still in the early phases of our budget creation, so I will also report back to the commission on our agency budget in a future meeting. I wanted to let the commission know today that it is Melissa's last meeting as our chief deputy. Melissa's last day with the department is June 30th, and we're very thankful for everything she's done for the department, and we wish her the best. And with that said, our new chief deputy started today, but she had to go through a hiring orientation, so she's not with us at the meeting, but her name is Yvonne Navarez Goodson. And we're glad to have her join the department and hopefully be able to introduce her to you all very shortly. And that concludes my briefing for today.
Thank you very much. Next meeting date is going to be August 15th, 2022. Hopefully we can be more in person at that one. It's my understanding that we'll probably be in Reno instead of here in Carson City. So everybody knows that. Okay, any other public comment in Carson City? Public comment in Las Vegas?
Can I make public comments before you move on?
Public comment on the telephone?
Dial *9 or raise your hand if you'd like to make public comment on the telephone or Zoom. No public comment.
Public comment from Melissa.
Thank you. Melissa Flatley, and I don't know if I'm speaking as myself or as the outgoing chief deputy, but I just wanted to say thank you again to the department for having me, and I am constantly impressed by the knowledge and dedication of the department staff and how hard they work to enforce the laws fairly and work with taxpayers so that they understand what the tax is about and how it's applied. So it was an honor to come back and work with them on that. And the commission, you guys do great work as well. And I appreciate everything you do preparing for these meetings. I definitely have a better understanding of that now than I did as the DAG.
Okay.
But thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Any items for future agendas anybody would like to bring up?
Chairman, Commissioner Lippman, so where is Ms. Flatley going? Did I miss that announcement?
No, I'm returning to the Division of Water Resources to be their hearing officer.
Thank you. Congratulations. And as long as you continue to say home means Nevada, that's fine.
Thank you. I learned the song within weeks of arriving in Nevada, so I feel like that made me an honorary Nevadan, if not a true Nevadan.
He will not ask you to sing it.
Thank you very much.
All right, very good. Thank